Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week for our second segment of our virtual COVID-19 Town Hall. My name is Harold Flanor II, and I am the president of the Gamma Eta Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, seated here in Austin, Texas. We're so thankful again for you joining us as we continue to have candid conversations about this virus, COVID-19, and about what is to come for us as we move forward. This evening, we plan to bring on, or our focus this evening is around education. And so we have individuals that have all the information that you will need in reference to how we'll move forward with this virus, because we realize it isn't going anywhere. With that being said, I want you also to understand that Gamma Eta Lambda is celebrating our 75th year of existence. In doing that, we've decided over this entire year to have different activities that focus on that number 75. And this is one of them. So you'll be able to see us go through this information and have all these guests in around 75 minutes. Again, so you're going to see two segments of great individuals that can provide the necessary information you'll need to move forward. At this time, I'm going to bring on our moderator, one of my good brothers. His name is Keelan Morgan, and we're going to bring him into the stream right now. Morgan, how are you today?
Good evening. I am great, and it's a pleasure to be with you on this evening.
Absolutely, brother. Listen, I'm glad that you accepted the invite. I know you're my brother, but at the same time, you're doing all types of things now. You know, you got your children, you got your pursuit of your doctoral degree and all that good stuff, and you work. And so thanks for taking out the time to lead this session about education.
No problem at all. As an educator and with kids in the educational system, education is very near and dear to my heart. So again, it's a privilege to be part of this conversation and to serve as moderator.
Absolutely. So I'm going to back away now, and then I'm going to allow you to go ahead and introduce our guest and go ahead and get this conversation started.
All right. As a precursor, before I get started and introduce our guests, you all are in for a delightful treat. And just backing up the words that our president just shared with you, you are going to hear from a number of experts that do have the answers. But I just kind of want to put a caution. I imagine they do not have all the answers. So if they were listening in the background, I don't want them to come in biting their fingernails, as they have to provide 100% responses to everything. This is indeed a conversation, as we've all been going through this pandemic. And most importantly, we're going to discuss not only how it has impacted the state of education, but what are school districts, what are school officials going to be doing to help ensure the safety of our students, as parents particularly have to make these very hard decisions as it relates to whether to send their children back to school. If there's a learning loss, how do we address that, and everything in between? So at this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists for the first segment. We have with us Miss Alexandria Grant. She's a school counselor with Richardson ISD. We have with us Ms. Sheila Lewis, who is an elementary school principal in Cypress Fairbanks ISD. And we also have with us Ms. Sheila Reed, who is a high school principal in Pflugerville ISD. So welcome, ladies. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Doing amazing.
All right. So we're going to jump right in and get this started. My first question to you, and it goes to each of you, what has your experience been as a school administrator responding to the COVID-19 pandemic?
I can start with that. My role was to basically, at the beginning of the year, start with a safe plan for those students or families who decided to come back. In Cypress Fairbanks, we started from day one, face-to-face, with a face-to-face and a virtual option. That meant for us, we had to come back where we normally set our classes in the spring before we leave for the next school year. We had to come back on and reorder all of our classes from, say, a 22-to-1 setting down to like a 12, or in some instances, 8 students to a teacher, based on who was coming back face-to-face. The second thing is our district was pretty proactive with the precautions in place. We planned out our sanitizing methods. We planned out lunch. We planned out recess so that they could stay zoned. We planned out getting water, closed down water fountains. The district brought in drink filling stations. Each classroom had sanitizing stations. Each student in the building had an acrylic desk shield. So we were pretty blessed to have a lot more than some districts have, and we're the second largest district in Houston. So our students were pretty well set if the parents chose to have them back in the building.
And I'll keep with the real administrator side, and then we'll transition to you, Ms. Grant. Ms. Reed, what was your experience in responding to the pandemic?
First of all, good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. I am blessed to be a member of the Divine Nine, so I appreciate you, brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha, putting this on. And so I am had the opportunity to serve as in the leadership role, and similar to the same things that we had at our campus, but my role as the principal centered around ensuring that the information was shared. So making sure that information definitely got shared with parents, that they knew the expectations, that they felt comfortable with those expectations. And so we had some of those same things that we had to do. Of course, safety and security was paramount because none of us knew what this was going to be like. And so we wanted to make sure that we were transparent in the information that we were giving to our parents, that we were supportive in their acknowledging their fears as well as their concerns, and those that did not have those fears and concerns. And so just being as supportive to our families and our students and even our teachers as much as we could, providing them with the necessary supports that they needed in terms of safety, making sure that our campus was ensuring that the safety protocols were all in place before everyone returned, and that our teachers knew what that plan was, from our teachers to our counselors, other administrators, as well as our custodial staff, so they knew their role as well. And then just to ensure that our students had what they need, whether or not they were coming back into the building or whether or not they were going to be at home. So our roles were similar. We had some of those same protocols in place. And as the principal and as of the campus, we wanted to make sure that that information was shared with our families so that they knew what to expect.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Grant, for you, in the context of your position as a school counselor, what has your experience been responding to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of echo what they both said. I am also blessed to be in a district that acted quickly and was able to get lots of different resources for our kids, and just to make sure that our students had options and access. Additionally, just as a role of a school counselor, one of my top roles was just to respond to students. Responsive services is one of the top things that I do on a daily basis. So that's, helping out students and families, making sure that during this time that their basic needs are met. They need access to food or water or, laptops or hotspots. And so I was that person that parents talked to, and they just wanted to make sure that they had that extra blanket of comfort. Additionally, I have done a lot of one-on-ones for our students and also our families. They were very nervous about having their kiddos come back. This is, for many of our kids, the first time that they've ever done school like this, especially our kinder kids. And so I've been doing a lot of mentoring and coaching, and the amount of individual counseling sessions that I am able to. And so again, just for me, responding to our students' needs and our families' needs as best as I can.
And before I move on, we kind of gleam over that March through May of last year, and we kind of entered the conversation right at, we've had some time to think about this, we've had time to do planning, but I want to go back to the beginning when most of us left. Like many of you, I literally was on travel for work prior to the pandemic. I walked out of my office on a Friday with Monday and Tuesday being travel days for work, and haven't returned since. So going back to March of last year, what was that like in terms of the pandemic? And specifically, I'm going back to there. So to really understand how tumultuous this was as we move the conversation forward, that it's still not an easy task to conquer.
I can go ahead and start and speak on that. Just for our team, our leadership team, we had to revamp everything. Even over spring break, we were, FaceTiming on the phone, trying to get a plan ready. I can even recall that Friday before we got out of school, we sent everything home with our kids because we just did not know. We were also up there on Saturday and Sunday just trying to make sure our kids had everything. And so those last couple of weeks in March was a lot of pivoting, a lot of walking to an unknown space where we were just getting guidance from our super and just trying to keep our parents up to date. I'm sure you all are parents, just over communicating with them. They appreciated that so much. And though it was a new space, we had a plan on Monday, and then Monday evening it changed. And then Tuesday we had a new plan. And then Thursday they said scratch. And then we had a new plan on Friday, and then scratched out on Monday. So it was a lot of just breathe and pivot, right? And so what seems like a blur now and seems what is now smooth was a lot of pivoting, erasing, and changing and repeat. So
spot on. And I saw a lot of head nods among our two other panelists in terms of agreeing with you, particularly as you mentioned the word pivot. And oftentimes when we don't seem to have a cohesive plan, it comes across as very disorganized. But to exactly what you said, it was something that we had to take a step. And if you had to take a side step as a result of that one step, we just had to do it. Did you, Ms. Reed or Ms. Lewis, did you have anything additional to add to kind of like that, what it was like to flip the switch overnight in response to the pandemic?
I would say that where, Ms. Grant was talking about they were able to get their plan together. And for me, the experience was the week before spring break, we didn't know. We left for spring break and we never came back from spring break. So we didn't even have that week. Most people had come back from spring break. We were on spring break and it hit. Like that Friday, we got out of school and we just never came back from Friday and did not know. So we didn't have the chance to send things home. And so it was a different experience for us finding that out once you're on spring break, that you're going to have to figure out how to get materials and supplies to kids and teachers. We had to figure out, how do I get my teachers that don't have the necessary access at their homes, the materials they need to be able to teach from home? And so it really was that pivot and that trial and error. And so again, some of the same aspects, but from the standpoint that we just didn't know. We left for spring break and just never came back.
And that was also the case for us. We left that week. And actually for myself personally, my son was home from college early and had a surgery that Friday. So I wasn't at work Friday. So if it had come over, I wouldn't have known. But we left for spring break and everything shut down while we were on spring break. So it was just like Ms. Reed said, that we had to figure out how to get materials in. And in addition to that, we had to figure out what instruction was going to look like, because teachers they may have been able to come up and get a document camera. Most of them in our district, each teacher has a laptop that they use for their teaching tool. They could take that home, but they don't normally take a document camera home. So we had to figure out how to get them to their materials so that they could create videos to just post. And Ms. Grant was also correct. As district gave leadership and gave wisdom for what we were going to do, we were very hesitant and we moved slowly on communicating with staff, because they could have a meeting with us at 2:00 and by 5:00 it was a totally different plan. And so basically I started listening to basically what the surrounding districts were doing, because at that point most of the districts superintendents were just doing what each other was doing, because it's just something new. So if you don't live in your district and the district you live in was doing something, then you could almost bet that someone was getting ready to follow, and it was just going to be like a little circle. So that at that point in March was just figuring out, how do we get through the next day? How do we communicate with the parents about how school is going to look? And we really honestly thought it was going to be a 2 to 3 week thing and we were going to be back. We did not know that it was going to last like it did.
And I'll stay with you, Ms. Lewis, and then I'm gonna come to you, Ms. Reed, and then Ms. Grant for this question, respectively. If you could briefly, like everything that you just shared undergirds the mental health space that we enter into when we think about the pandemic, that traumatizing factor of literally the carpet being pulled from under us overnight in terms of redesigning an entire educational system. So with that, describe the mental health impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on not only your students, but also your teachers.
Yes. one of the things is when many people think of education, they think of the students, but we have to take care of the staff many times in situations like this before we can take care of the students. Because if we don't take care of the staff, they can't take care of the students, right? So our concern, the first thing that we did was to find out, do you have a space? If you don't have a space, then how can we help you? If you can't video from home, you know what? Who else on your team can do that? Because we need to have it where you're comfortable and you don't feel pressured. People are professional, but you don't know what their home lives are like. So that was the thing. And to make sure we kept a constant check with our teachers. We also created documents on Google Drive so that teachers had communication with parents, and they would actually put in, our first few weeks were mainly put in on were students okay, were families okay. We didn't concentrate a lot on instruction right away. We just wanted to know maybe who's not working, who lost their jobs, who needed to have some resources, anyone that we could check up on. And then when it was time to start the school year, we took a survey of teachers. Are you in a situation where you have someone that maybe you stay with that's ill or elderly? Do we need to make you a virtual teacher as opposed to a face-to-face or a hybrid teacher? So there was a lot that we considered. And then even as administrators, we have to consider ourselves too, because, we're leaders. It doesn't mean we don't have reservations, but when we go out in front of the group, we have to be a united front and we have to be able to lead. And that, I would say, was kind of the difficult part. Myself, I'm not a very timid person. I feel I can take care of myself. I feel I can stay safe. However, this is something that we've never experienced before. So you didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know at the time when it was decided that we were going to come back to school, what our district was doing specifically at that time. So that all came later. We had to make a decision, and personally, and I'm sure these wonderful ladies can agree, when people know that you're an educator, you get personal phone calls from the neighbor next door, from people in your family. And my son, my youngest graduated in 2019. So people were calling. If he was still in school, would he be going back? Yes, he would. Yes, he would. One, because I believe God covers us, and we have those angels protecting us. But number two, I just feel like when I'm a leader and I'm expecting other people's children to come back, I have to be that example. So if it's safe enough for me to go to work and safe enough for other people to send their children, I'm going to put my child in that situation. And so, but he went back to college. So with the same issues going on, he went back to college. So I think we just have to, it was just a matter of making sure everyone was taken care of. And still now, as we have parents that decide each grading period that they wanted their students to come back. And I had teachers who went from a virtual setting, but then so many students started coming back into face-to-face that I could no longer put those students with a face-to-face teacher, because now my face-to-face classes are getting pretty high in numbers. So now I have to make a virtual teacher who has some concerns because their mother has cancer. I have to make them a hybrid teacher. And so it's an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. And as we round to these last few weeks of school, there are still reservations. There are still reservations. But I would say in my particular campus, we started the year with about 300, little under 400 students. Our campus numbers are about 850. And right now we're up to about 600 and something. So they're more comfortable.
And that's definitely something we'll delve into more of the specificities in terms of what's to come shortly. But Ms. Reed, what would you add to that, if anything? Because I know Ms. Lewis, she covered a lot of ground in terms of that principal viewpoint. What else would you add to that?
I don't know that there was much more to add, but I would echo that the speed of the pandemic and the onslaught of it that caused such disruption, and that disruption happened so quickly, and it disrupted everything from our daily routines, to our life. And so making sure that the health and safety, mental health and safety of first and foremost of our teachers, because they had to provide for our students. And so we spent that first week with wellness checks. Just, are you okay? What do we need to organize so that you have what you need, so that you can supply the students with what they need? We had to address the fears of not only the teachers, but I had administrators that had fears themselves. But just like Ms. Lewis, we had to put on that united front. Here are the things that we need to do. We were in search of PPE, just like the doctors were. We were making sure that people had the necessary mask and gloves. And at first, we did not have that. So we had to continuously make sure that we had those things available, because that added to a person's mental ability to handle what was going on. We had teachers that had kids and elderly parents. And so those fears were real. We allowed our counselors to make those personal phone calls, to get with our teachers and ensure that they were not stressing out over the things that we could not control. And so really just making sure that the supports were there is what I would say we were able to do. But that meant the mental health aspect was critical, and it happened suddenly, and we all were dealing with it. And so that stress that came with the consistent change and that change overnight, it made us have to think differently about what we were doing. And so really just ensuring that we were as prepared as we could be for what was to come.
And Ms. Grant, oh, thank you so much, Ms. Reed. And Ms. Grant, I'm gonna contextualize your question just a little bit different. So, as a result of the pandemic, what are some things you've seen, particularly the impact among students, and then more importantly, as parents, as fellow educators, concerned citizens, when we see these things, what can we do to help students?
Yeah. So a lot of what I've seen in my students this past year, many have been consumed with stress or worry, nervousness, anxiety, exhaustion. For them, a lot of this, well, all of our kiddos have to wear masks, and just the ability to breathe differently, it makes you tired. And so our students were stressed about if they were going to stay 6 feet apart. They were worried about if the virus was going to spread. They were nervous about not being able to see some of their friends. Anxiety just on what happens next. A lot of my guidance this year has been focused on decreasing anxiety and worry and practicing self-care and our circle of controlling the things that we can change and that we have the power to, and dumping everything else out that we cannot change. I've had to tell my kids many times, hey, y'all, we are not able to control the weather, the traffic, the virus, but what we can do are these things to be safe. And so specifically just for parents, were a lot of those exact same things. They were worried that their students were worried. Thankfully, a lot of our parents have lots of faith within our district and our super, who's done such a great job. But it was just a natural worry that they had. And I often find myself replying to emails and phone calls, just trying to ease parents' worry and anxiety and fear. A lot of my students' families are very in tune with the aspect of mental health. And so most of the time, their first, question was, does he or she need to go to, therapy? And I would have to say that is a parent choice, but we always highly, suggest that therapy is something that all of our students do. It is great. It allows one to just express themselves and, concerns and fears from someone who may not be close to them without, judgment. Additional things from teachers. Teachers come into my office, they're worried. Burnout, that's the number one word that we've heard all year. Just even from a counselor standpoint, I've had to book many MTSS meetings. So that's multi-tiered system of student, support meetings. My teachers are finding that, one, they had to teach from what they couldn't teach March 2020 until May. And now they have to pick up and teach the content for this current year. And so they're burned out, and so I often get questions like, oh, Ms. G, can you do a lesson on this? Can you do a lesson on this? And so just even for us within the counseling services room, we've had to revamp all of our lessons just to make sure that we're meeting the needs of right now. What we would normally do in April or May, it may be a little bit different. We may not be talking about test taking skills. Maybe we're talking about anxiety and worry, meditation and breathing, right? We can touch on all of those things, but just making sure that at the core that our students and families are whole, because sometimes we can just see it in the way our students walk, in the way they talk, that something is wrong. And so one of my biggest roles this year was just to make sure that kiddos knew that school is a safe haven, right? And I think that's what parents were really wanting to hear. Is school safe? Is it a safe place physically, but also is it a safe place mentally for our kids? And so I've been having to just really, comfort parents and also staff who have children there at the same school, just comfort them and just let them know we're all in this together. We're taking it a step at a time, a day at a time, and we got this. Whatever, we've gotten this far and we've changed, we've pivoted, and we're going to keep on pivoting until we can't pivot anymore. So.
All right. And I have about 3 more questions that I want to get through in the next 10 minutes. So lightning round. So briefly, just the first things that come to mind real quick. And this is what everybody wants to know. What does the 2021-2020 school year look like for your respective district and or school? Virtual, in person, hybrid? Ms. Lewis?
Right now, my understanding, again, because we can still pivot, my understanding is we are going to a full face-to-face. If you want virtual, you basically will be in a virtual setting. Whereas this year, those virtual students are part of our campus. If you choose virtual next year, you're going to technically be on another campus. Our superintendent has assured us we will not have hybrid teaching.
Okay. Ms. Reed?
While again, we cannot determine what, the public health authorities will determine and that our Texas Education Agency will determine, but our district also is committed to face-to-face and bringing students back and not participating in the hybrid as well. But again, knowing that we could possibly pivot to whatever comes up, but we are anticipating being back face-to-face.
And Ms. Grant, I actually have a different question for you to move the conversation a little bit. What should parents be doing now to prepare their children for this transition for potentially virtual or remote learning back to in person? As our colleagues, Ms. Reed and Ms. Lewis, have already shared, districts are making these plans to go back. And I'm a parent of 2 kids that are in virtual school at my house right now. So I got one sitting in my formal dining room area and one in his bedroom. So what advice do you have for us as we prepare to move our students to shift that learning experience?
So one thing that I will tell parents to do is just to have an open convo with their students about how their schedule is going to be different and how it's going to be more fast-paced. we've had a lot of learners who have been off, or not, I don't want to say off, excuse me. They've been in virtual learning all year and their schedule is off. So they may have these peak breaks where it may be an hour or two or a couple of hours and they get on Zoom at 8:30 and then 1. Just having parents just talk to them about how, okay, so you've been in virtual learning and it's looked like this. Now we need to start thinking about what school used to look like in regards to pace. You're going to be on a schedule where you're going to have to move and or travel or rotate, or your teachers travel, which our teachers do on our campus. Our students stay in the same room. And also, one thing I would tell parents to do is just tell their students or teach their students how to advocate for themselves when they need something. If they're feeling a little stressed, if they're feeling, exhausted, if they're feeling like they can't keep up, just teach them how to use their voices and advocate. We all have been teachers before. We have 20, 25 kids in one room. We're not able to read minds. We can't memorize everyone's facial, expression when they are worried or scared. And so just speaking up and advocating on what your child needs, because we've been in this, environment now for months. And so we know how to move. So I would just say advocating and getting used to being back on, a schedule, even asking for a sample, schedule from the previous year. Hey, can I just look at y'all schedule so I can show my child what he or she may be getting ready to do? That way they can, decrease the anxiety and worry about what it may look like, even though we may still have to pivot.
Thank you so much for those responses. Even as someone immersed in the field, I took a lot away from what you just said. Ms. Reed, I'm going to come to you, and then I have one closing question for the group. Specifically for you, Ms. Reed, for current juniors and seniors, what efforts have been made to ensure that they graduate high school college ready in the midst of the pandemic?
Well, one of the things is we have to, and we are doing, is to reiterate to families and students what college ready means, so that they have a good understanding of what does it mean to be college ready. And that is, ensuring that they know that when they get ready to go to college, we want to ensure that they don't need remedial classes or they don't need support classes when they get ready to take their college math or their college language arts. And so really just ensuring that they know what that means, and then preparing them in those academic classes, from their advanced placement classes to any support classes like an AVID class or a college readiness class, college math, and just making sure that we align that curriculum so that they are able to perform when they make it to college. And then just making sure that they have those soft skills, that are taught in some of those classes: the problem solving, the collaboration, and, being creative and thinking outside the box. So putting opportunities in front of students so that they are able to do that. Yes, we are in the pandemic, but we still are required to ensure that our students are college ready. And those are some of the things that we do with our students. We provide them with meetings, college 101 meetings. We provide parents with conferences to help them understand what the change is going to be like from high school to college. We put together Zooms and town halls and tutorials and interventions, and we really focus on those necessary curricular academic skills that a student is going to need at the high level so that they can perform on a college level. And whether that is immediately after high school or they take some time. We also focus on their military readiness, because not everybody is going into college, but we also focus on that military readiness, making sure that our students take the ASVAB test, or making sure they take the necessary TSI test. And so those tests that those students need to be taking in order to be deemed and prepared for college readiness, that is what we also prepare.
You made me get goosebumps over here talking about those things, particularly understanding the difference in post-secondary readiness as it relates to CCMR accountability juxtaposed against what we consider college readiness at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And you mentioned one of my babies, the TSI. That's actually one of the contracts that I oversee for the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So great work that you're doing. And for the group, this is the last question. In about a minute or less, you get to answer this. So if you're not, I'll figure out who's going to go first. But so in an Education Week article I read by Tommy Thompson, he states the biggest learning loss as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic will not be from students, but from educators who do not learn the lessons of the pandemic and use them as opportunities to grow. What lessons have you learned during the pandemic, and how do you think that will change the future of education? And I know that's a loaded question, but in 1 minute or less. Ms. Reed.
The thing that we learned is to be resilient and to be ready for any circumstance and to be adaptable to those circumstances. And I would say the one thing that is going to lead us into the future, pandemic or not, is to continue to spur on innovation. I think this pandemic has brought us to a place in education where we had to innovate, and we had to innovate quickly to provide students with what they needed, and in those various methods of instruction, varying those methods of instruction and varying our pedagogy. So I would say the spurring on of innovation, changing our pedagogy, and knowing that we have to continuously evolve to be able to provide our students with information that's prepared for their future, not what we think they need, but for their future.
All right, Ms. Lewis and Ms. Grant, we will end with you. Ms. Lewis?
I agree. I think we've learned most the importance of technology. To have to implement getting a computer and a hotspot to, hundreds of thousands of students in a short amount of time. Educated staff who some have not had to do any of that technology because it just wasn't that in depth in education. And so I think that was a great thing. And as we move forward, and though we may go back to a face-to-face setting, we will not go back to education as it was before. It is going to lean forward with technology, and it is going to cause our students to rise up in that area and our staff. And now we know that even though it wasn't preferred, we know that we have the capability, like Ms. Reed said, to do multiple things, to learn, to teach multiple ways, to make adjustments. So it's part of our framework now. And so now we just have to fit it into what we need to do to move forward once we have those specific guidelines.
Y'all gonna get me in trouble with these amazing responses because I keep wanting to ask follow-up questions, but I'll yield to you, Ms. Grant, for the closing word.
I'm just going to echo just a few things. In my notes here, I have that virtual learning is here to stay. The whole world has already seen that we are able to get this done. I know it's been a topic that's been danced around for years. Are we going to move to virtual learning? What does that look like? And I think that this whole, pandemic just taught us that there's a new way to, do things, and there will always be new and different way to get things done and to reach various types of learners. Additionally, one lesson that I have taken away from this and that I continue to take away on a daily basis is that in order for everybody to grow, specifically myself, we have been made uncomfortable, and we are going to be continuing to be uncomfortable for a very long time, because I think we're going to be pivoting for a long time on many different things. And so it's just taught me that there's so much to take away from every single plan, every single post-it note, everything we have to change, every lesson we have, every, blueprint that gets put out, blueprint 1.0, 2.0, 2.5, all of it. I mean, we are just in a season that is just a prolonged state of growth, which is good. And I think that there's so much that just everyone personally can take away from this.
Wow. And I'm going to end there. And real quick, Miss Reed, you said you are a member of the Divine Nine. Which organization do you rep?
As if you can't tell. Delta
I'm
Sigma
messing
Theta.
with you, but hey, we have much love for the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta. So, Miss Grant, Miss Reed, Miss Lewis, we thank you so much for your sacrifice of time and being with us on this evening. And now I'll yield back to our. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Lewis.
I'm not going to let this pass. I'm a member of the Divine Nine too, the illustrious Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Thank you.
I was waiting on the perfect moment to jump in there.
Let's go.
I didn't want to one up, but I was like,
Let's go. And we have love for each other. I love the banter. Those outside don't often understand, but we know it's all love within. So again, ladies, I thank you for your sacrifice of time and yielding your expertise to this conversation. And as a result, I know our viewership is more informed about the experience of educators with responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and what's to come. Again, thank you, Brother Flournoy.
Thank you, Brother Morgan. And ladies, thank y'all so much for being with us tonight. Brother Morgan, I apologize. I did not write that out, that yes, all of them are members of the Divine Nine. That was my fault. I apologize. But ladies, thank you so much for being with us tonight on behalf of the Gamma Eta Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your expertise. And we look forward to potentially even having you back later in the summer. I think this is something as we move into the school year that's going to have to be revisited. The word of the night was pivot. You know, and so I believe between now and then there could be some changes. There could be other things that are out there. And so I'd ask that you be open and willing to maybe even coming back for a follow-up as we get through the summer and get a little bit closer to seeing how things are. But I just, again, want to thank you so much for being with us on this evening. Y'all have a great evening. So, Brother Morgan, at this point, I'm so happy, man, that just went absolutely amazing. All the questions that were coming out. I'm just backing up now, and I'm gonna allow you to introduce these other three brothers, and they actually have something in common with me and you. So I'm gonna back away because all of these brothers, how would you say, they know something about the black and gold. So the black and old gold, every last one of them. So I'm gonna back up, let you just continue with this conversation. You're doing an amazing job. I think our viewers are loving it. The comments are amazing. So I'm gonna back up while you introduce these brothers.
All right. And as Brother Flournoy said, we're continuing with an all-star panel for you this evening. And first, we'll be introducing Brother Tony Hansen, who serves as a school board member for Pflugerville ISD. We have with us also Dr. Anthony T. Mays, who serves as the Chief of Schools for Austin Independent School District. Welcome, brother. And last but certainly not least, we also have with us Dr. Eric Tingle, who is an assistant superintendent with Lake Worth ISD. Boy, that is a tongue twister to say, Dr. Tingle.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, brothers, welcome. How are you this evening?
Good.
So I'm not going to belabor the point, and we're going to jump right in. Hopefully you had an opportunity to listen to some of the first segment, and now we're going to shift gears. So the first segment was more so focused on what's going on at the campus level and what the response has been at the campus level. But we know that even in addition to the campus response with the principals, the counselors that we had represented in the first segment, there's the larger context of the school district, and then the even larger context of the governing board, the school board. So with that, I am going to open the conversation with the same question that I posed to our panelists in the first segment. So in the context of your position, what has your experience been responding to the COVID-19 pandemic? Brother Tingle.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here, Brother Morgan. I would say to that question, as the assistant superintendent over teaching and learning, and I'm sure people said this earlier, the pandemic has put us in a situation where we've had to teach instructionally like we never have before. And so I think in the scope of my position, we've been charged with making sure that students are learning at a high level of rigor, although some of them are sitting at home in their living rooms, right? And so that's a challenge. That's not something that we were brought up doing. That's not something that we knew how to do really before the pandemic. We've learned a ton about what that looks like. And so we've had to make sure that our kids are savvy with technology. We've had to make sure that we have the right tools and apps for our students. We've had to train teachers on the spot related to using Google Classroom and Zoom. We've learned so many things that we can do throughout this pandemic. And I'll tell you, Brother Morgan, it hasn't been all bad. You know, we've been able to tighten up on some skills that I don't think I'll ever let go. And so in the scope of my position, it is just what we do. Instruction has been something that we've been focusing on all year here in Lake Worth, and I'm sure across the nation. And we've been trying to find ways to make sure that we are still effective for students, although we're in the midst of this pandemic. So just monitoring instruction, supporting campuses has looked different this year because of the scope of the pandemic. But we are excited about the things that we've learned and a lot of the things we will continue.
And Brother Mays, you have a very critical position in Austin Independent School District, serving as the chief of schools. What is your experience being responded to the pandemic?
Well, I was, of course, has taken on a different form in terms of it's been heavily political, just because with the city of Austin, lots of advocacy, lots of challenges around, bringing teachers back into the building, given the fear and anxiety around the pandemic. And so we went through a series of entry points, unlike many other districts that opened up and maybe had a few teachers only. We had, I want to say it right, close to 1,400 teachers that were out on accommodation. So it led to a lot of challenges with, students being able to come back into the classroom and actually have a teacher at various grade levels. And so that was a piece that we had to manage first, with making sure everybody felt safe as they came back into the building. The next piece, of course, was managing, teachers and families, not just teachers and families, but students and families feeling like they could then come into the building and be okay. So ours has been one long series of movies where we are probably still in chapter 2, and you all are probably in chapter 4 or 5. But we are slowly and steadily pushing the envelope. And now we have about 100% of our, for the most part, nearly 100% of our teachers back in the building. And we are increasing daily with students in attendance.
And Brother Hanson, transitioning to you as one responsible for, as I always like to say, the role of a school board is to keep the districts honest. What has your experience been in responding to the pandemic in your role?
Wow. In the sense of that we're saying honest. Well, let me say this too first. Brother Keelan, thank you all. I know the lady earlier for an opportunity to continue this conversation at this level. But then also for me, I kind of look at these two brothers, doctors, and I'm getting to sit on this panel of esteemed men who are leading in education, and just wanted to say, I'm humbled by it, and hopefully just being able to kind of share those things that came from me through this, and it'll help somebody as we keep moving forward. But in that question that you ask, in the sense of being honest, and the other side of being not only honest, but working with the superintendent to oversee, our biggest role is ensuring that these young people are being educated. And one of those things, as Dr. May said, we've been just a little bit north of Austin. We kind of felt that same thing in the sense of having staff and wanting to make sure that they were, protected and taken care of, but then all the other side of it be, okay, well, our kids need to be in the classroom. So if they got to be in the classroom, somebody has to be in there with them. And so one of the things I think I heard the lady say was this word pivot. And that was the word of the hour. I think the thing for that I continue to just kind of look at is this word unprecedented, because literally last year, and even considering the winter storm that hit us earlier, it's all been unprecedented. I mean, literally, I think Principal Reed mentioned we were getting ready to go to spring break and did not come back. And it was like, okay, now we know how to come back from summer break. You know, what will this look like now? And bringing everybody back. And so, like you said, for us, I guess for me, I take that analogy too, of us still having to educate, still having to make sure that students are being, I think you heard that word, college ready, is we were being tasked as a board to actually ensure, as the district we're building a plane. You got people on the plane. You're adding people to the plane. The change how to build the plane. You got to fly it, but you got to land safely. And so those things all played into this aspect of what this looked like, I think, for a board member. I say especially for me. And so to me, it was unprecedented. And we continue to walk through it as it is every day.
Thank you so much for those responses. And I can only imagine, I could best probably summarize what each of you said with, it's almost seemingly like the goalpost keeps moving. As soon as you figure out one little thing, another thing pops up and it's like, man, I thought we were there. I thought we had this figured out. And I want to come back to something you said, Dr. Mays, in terms of your teachers coming back into the building, and that you're slowly but surely etching towards 100%. And with increasingly more adults in Texas receiving the COVID-19 vaccine, what impact does that have on the district-wide decisions you have to make regarding reopening?
Yeah, I think that for us, given where we were with the pandemic, we had to really be aggressive about providing opportunities for immunization. So we moved aggressively to partner with like hospital agencies and organizations to get all of our faculty and staff vaccinated, because again, the level of discomfort and anxiety that we had resulting in, lots of grievances as individuals were told that, hey, it's time for you to come back. We have students that we need to support. Like Brother Hanson said, we knew that the best place for those students to actually learn was in the classroom. And so it's a balancing act. But I'm happy to say that we have well over 75% of our faculty and staff immunized. And a lot of that is due to, again, just a lot of strong partnerships with the hospital agencies and trying to make sure that whether it was a Saturday or during the holidays, when we got a call and they said, hey, we got 1,000 vaccinations, we need y'all to get people into this building, by Saturday or Sunday, making those phone calls, getting people signed up, getting them into those seats so they can get the shots in the arm, and hopefully deal with some of those notions of safety and security that they needed to have in place before they went back into the building.
Dr. Tingle, I see you agreeing with Dr. Mays. What's your insight on that?
Not too much more to add, Brother Morgan, but I just ditto what Dr. Mays was saying. There has been a push for adult vaccinations. I think the more we get vaccinated, the more we learn about COVID, the more we can combat some of the ways that we instruct and that we bring people back. And so I was just agreeing with them. I think that, as more and more people get vaccinated, as you can see, the nation is opening up a little bit more. People are getting a little bit more relaxed. CDC is coming out with few more restrictions and guidelines. And so as a school district, we adjust to those. And so, and a lot of times the media writes the narrative, and we know that to be true. And so if the narrative is that, we have this vaccination and you can get it and we're opening up it makes people feel safer, if that makes sense. And so we're able as a school district to base our approach based on the CDC and based on the narrative. And so it is what we're using to be able to move forward. And I know the ladies spoke earlier about, what next year may look like. And so, we are looking into those things because it is super important. You see a lot of places around the area just opening up, no mask, and we're all vaccinated, and so I think it helps the narrative, and I think it makes places safer. We can, if CDC, relax some of those guidelines, we can continue to do that as well, and get our people in the buildings where we know they can educate students.
Brother Hanson, I saw you over there itching. Add to this conversation for me.
Yeah, no, it was actually what Brother Mays was saying as well. When CODA opened, as well as Austin Public Health, but I think that the turning point for us really was when I think it was President Biden sent a directive to kind of open up to all educators, the ability to be able to receive the vaccine. So that push really did help. And so, like you said, with CODA, Circuit of the Americas having the big drive-through, a lot of our nursing staff was able to go down and participate, and then a lot of our staff got slots to be a part of that. So, because I was actually thinking, I know the superintendent probably about 2 weeks ago indicated that we were about at 900 staff that was fully vaccinated. And then that number, I think last week, was up to 1,400, and we're actually thinking that it'll be 1,700 by the end of this week. And so our total staff is about 3,000. So when I'm thinking of that, yeah, the numbers are creeping up, and I'm blessed for that. But the only thing I also think about too, though, is while kind of that conversation of it's a emergency vaccine. So it's not that it's required. And so you have those who will, they will decide not to. And then you also have younger students who, won't probably have it because, like I say, there's not a vaccine for them, or who decide not to. And so there's still that concern of in the same area or closeness and somebody being asymptomatic. So, while we are making progress, that progress still can be slow. Because I think I was trying to remember, there was an article recently by the Texas Tribune, and they were talking about how COVID-19 vaccine demand has dropped, because it's that mindset of, oh, it's getting better, but it's still having to move, continue moving forward. If we can't stop right now, we have to continue to move forward to actually get back to that place where we can say not have the requirement of even masks inside. So just wanted to add that part. Thanks.
And I think Dr. May shared earlier that the notion of an immunization gives us that sense of safety and comfort. But as you said, Brother Hanson, there's still, and I'll add a little color to it, in some cases, polarizing opinions about, do I want it? Do I not want it? Is it effective? Is it not? From the perspective of many of those that you encounter on a daily basis that are charged with being employees of the school district. So with that, I'm muddy the waters a little bit. So the COVID-19 vaccine is available to individuals ages 16 and up. Are school districts making a concerted effort to encourage those of age to get the vaccine?
Yeah, I can jump out there. I think we got 4 sites set up at our high schools, and so we started last week with it. And I was funny before we got started on this call. I was like, okay, I know I've had 2 of them to actually go, move forward, and we're providing, buses. We're doing whatever we can to try to, give access to those that are in need. And so as we look at, some of these heat maps that the hospitals provide, you can kind of see the inequities in terms of what communities are most adversely impacted and haven't had opportunities to get vaccinated. So, we're trying to work with, churches, but we're leveraging, our ability to open up our schools and try to be able to move families and students through that, because we know even with us getting teachers immunized, even with us getting, people within the district immunized, if the students, can come and not, necessarily have the vaccination, but then go home and take it to a loved one, like a grandmother or an aunt or whoever, then, we still gonna be at square one with getting kids back into the building. So for us, it's like, how can we get everybody access to the opportunity to get this shot so that we can get back as quickly as possible to normal?
Dr. Tingle?
We currently are focusing on the adults. We leave the 16 and over to the parents, and we try to educate them through social media and through other avenues to make sure that they are aware of testing sites. But we don't in the district have anything set up for students. But we do partner with different organizations to make sure that our staff and employees are vaccinated.
And say, Brother Hanson, before we move on, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, we're in that same place as Dr. Tingle mentioned, but we are trying to develop some relationships with Walgreens and HEB where they actually can come out to the campus. And so if we can catch them where they are, that's the idea. We are doing, like you say, the COVID testing, but as far as the vaccination themselves, that's the part we're still working on for that 16-year-old group.
Yeah. And Brother Hanson and Brother Tingle, like you say, Walgreens is one of our partners. We also got some partners with the state. I'd be happy to connect you all with some of the resources that we've been able to leverage to get them out there into the community in hopes of them. I know they won't come all the way up there with you, Tingle, but they may come over there and work with Brother Hanson and the community.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm sure they know somebody with Walgreens in his area as well. They say that good old Alpha Network always at work. So, brothers, shifting gears a little bit. In the state of Texas, sports are a big deal. We are ready to return to Friday Night Lights. I'm ready to go see them swing on the diamond. But with this whole notion that the state has been open for business, is now fully open for business, we have increased immunizations. We have Dr. Fauci saying, okay, we still can't move exactly like we did in the past. What might sporting events in the state of Texas look like for the 2021 school year? Brother Mays, I'll start with you.
For us, sports actually hadn't looked that much different. I mean, outside of, everybody putting on a mask and taking temperatures, our community has been adamant, and you touch sports, you could get a visceral reaction because, oftentimes you won't see the students throughout the day because they're working to, be as safe as they can. But during the evening, that's when they try to take care of that social and emotional learning piece where they get to come out and try to, socialize with some peers, exercise a little bit. And that may be the only time that kid gets out the house for the most part that day. So we've really, as best we could, have worked to manage COVID-19 amongst those athletic activities. And if we have a situation where we need to quickly address, a case or two or whatever amongst the teams, we try to respond pretty rapidly. But, believe it or not, the appetite for sports and families, it has not gone away. And so we've had a pretty active athletic life throughout the district.
Awesome. Brother Tingle, what might sporting events look like for your district in 21-22, I'm sorry.
I agree with Dr. Mays. He hit it right on the hit it right on the head. Sports have been available. They've been available, and we've been participating. I think some of the things we've tried to do though is have more frequent sanitation stations set up around our different sporting events. We've had people on duty to make sure that they are monitoring the mask wearing. Sometimes you get to a sporting event and people don't want to wear them and things of that sort. And so we've tried to enforce those things because we know that everybody doesn't sit 6 feet apart all the time whenever they're cheering for their kids. And so we try to get people to monitor the mask, and we have plenty of sanitation stations set up across our different sporting events. And, we've even bought some of the big misters to mist some of our rooms to alleviate some of the germs whenever we have other athletes within our facilities. And so just trying to make improvements and trying to do things as we go. But, sports have been active, track, football, we've been participating in those things. But I think those small precautions have been helping to be able to, at least let the community know that we are putting a cautious effort in front of us to make sure that the safety of their kids is the most important.
And Brother Hanson, I see you went off camera for a little bit. Did you hear the question?
No, sir. I apologize.
All right. So in the state of Texas, sports are a big deal. What precautions might be in place for the 2021-22 school year to help athletes and patrons stay safe? What might sporting events look like? And particularly from your perspective as the elected official that the community will probably come to again, as Brother May said earlier, if anything comes towards the sports for various reasons, you might be that go-to person. You're my elected school board member. What are you going to do, sir? So what might that look like in the 21-22 school year?
Well, and I'll say this, and it goes back also to that kind of like our first question, in the sense of having to pivot as we get, certain information or instruction. So I can only say for me, but as most likely our superintendent, our nursing, our health, our athletic director, are we following what UIL has listed out at a minimum? Whatever UIL is requiring of us, are we doing just that? Because I think about this year, athletes who were on the bench had to wear a mask, but those who were active in play did not have to wear the mask. I think I heard the brother speak to, in the sense of the different stations around at the athletic events, just ensuring that people still keeping distance. I mean, even in our sporting events, there are still spacing, even outside. I mean, we're still doing that. And so, people are staying in there, what we were considering pods initially. I think depending on where, like I say, the vaccine rate is going forward, I know UIL was doing, requiring checks, as far as like your wellness check, the thermos, taking temperatures before participating in the summer camp or summer athletic event. And I know our staff was actually going out, making sure coaches and those who were supervising were actually doing those kind of things. So I mean, for me, it would be kind of pivoting to what UIL is saying. And as they relax or they come back and say, no, we need to do something else, then I want to make sure at the ground level, that's what we're doing first.
And I think we've all seen UIL stance has been, don't you mess with sports. Because we've all, like you said, try to lean on that guidance, and it's just one of those things where, like you say, you mess with football, they are about to blow Brother Hanson's email up, because it's you mess with football, that's a problem. You mess with any sport for the most part.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brother Mays, I'm not even say football. I even heard it on young ladies basketball, women's basketball, and literally it was like, you cannot cancel our season. So yeah, no, I hear it.
All right. So now I'm going to take us a little deeper in this conversation. So recently, our very own esteemed frat brother, Mike Morath, who serves as the Commissioner of Education, compared the coronavirus pandemic to Hurricane Katrina in terms of interrupting learning and learning loss. The TEA did a study of students impacted by Hurricane Katrina, and the findings indicated that it took roughly 4 years of targeted interventions for students to catch up in reading to state averages. However, they were never able to catch up in math. What will school districts do to help students recover from the anticipated learning loss as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? Whoever wants to jump in, I'm gonna leave that to the brave soldier. I don't even want to be the one to have to call somebody after that question.
I'll jump at the high level, and I'll let these esteemed brothers jump in if They want to go in and just correct the other side. Because I'm only going to speak kind of to what we're attempting or moving toward. I think the big thing right now is being able to use performance data to kind of see where everybody is, but that's absent considering this time frame we've been in for these last 14 months. I think the thing though is, although that's absent, there are other opportunities that we're able to use as a district to evaluate, to plan, to implement, to kind of monitor this COVID recovery. And the other side is going to be acceleration, because like what you said, that 4 or 5 years, literally we can't take 4 to 5 years, because I mean, we already were dealing with some gaps. And so if we take that additional 4 or 5, we're that much further behind. And so our district is actually working to partner with, I got to read the name, this National Institute for in Testing. And the idea is that this will probably undertake or take us about 12 to 24 months of a recovery journey. And the word I try to talk to people about, remember, this is a journey. This is not a sprint. But the time that we have, it is going to be compressed, because we need to move, but we can't move slow about it either. But we want to make sure that we do have a plan in place. And so the next 2 months, staff is engaging TEA, NEET, our stakeholders to complete a needs assessment, then prioritize our student groups, because that's going to be the big part too. Identify our top 3 recovery and acceleration strategies, and then identify the short-term and long-term recovery initiatives. And then also at that point, bring those high-level things back to us as a board. And we want to make sure, like you said, when we start looking at the data, and then one of the things I know we're also challenged with is not to just keep it up here, but like what you said, our Black and brown students, we want to start that disparate information. We want to know what are our young Black men doing, what are our young brown girls are doing, and then break it, from math to read, all of those, because those are going to be critical going forward. And so as we kind of push, that's kind of the overarching, and I can, if that's kind of enough information to kind of share where we are. But again, we're in that planning phase. And it is the gathering of, but then we do know, and that information should be back to us by June. But even by June, we still got another year to just kind of, walk through and start putting these things in place. And so hopefully, like you say, this 12, 24 months, it's going to be a push. So, and I hate, man, let me say this too, because that's the thing that I know staff has been pushed. They have not had a break. And the thing I'm always reminded of is, remember when you take your flights? I think I heard you say that you were going on a vacation and you took a flight. Remember the first thing they do on their safety plan? They tell you to put your oxygen on first before you put on someone else's. And we have not literally had the time to give staff the opportunity to put their oxygen on. And man, and this is the stuff, like you said, in the board that we're running through our head, like it's only so much they can take, but then it's like, it's only so long we have. So yeah, I'm sharing that with you in that part.
All right, Dr. Tingle, I'll come to you, and then Dr. Mays.
Brother Hanson, I was going to say we are also partnering with that same organization through TEA, through the partnership. So we're on the same page. So we might have to call each other,
yes, sir.
email
yes,
each
sir.
other after this session to
yes,
see
sir.
how they're treating us and make sure they're giving us the right tools for our kids.
Yes,
but I think one of the things we're doing, Brother Morgan, is that we're actually trying to plan a summer enrichment adventure, if you will, to try to pull our kids into summer. We have not traditionally required summer school. And so one of the things that we're doing is that we're pulling some of our elective classes down to the elementary level for summer. So we're exposing our kids to culinary arts. We're exposing them to sewing. We're exposing them to, all different forms of our CTE courses. Those teachers have dedicated their time in the summer to work with our kids starting in first grade so that we can strategically support them with math and reading. We got to get them here first. So in order to get them here, we have so many initiatives that we're doing this summer. Makerspace. We got all kind of stuff that we've put funds into, because the most of their time will be spent on math and reading. So we've identified students that we want to attend without requiring it, but we're making it fun. We're making it engaging. From there, we'll do pre and post tests throughout the summer to kind of see where our kids are. And our curriculum team in the district is creating those pacing guides. We are looking at the TEKS across the school year, and we are trying to see what the heavily tested ones are and where as a district have we failed students and where do we see the biggest gaps. And that is how we'll build our pacing guides. We have a ton of students that have already enrolled in this summer program. So that's a start. I think we're starting there in the summer. Because right now, I think like Brother Hanson was saying, our teachers are putting all they have into our kids. And so we want to make sure that, that summertime is going to be super effective, making sure that we're able to and not waste students' time, not waste teachers' time. And so that summer enrichment camp is something that we're really excited about and that we're planning. I will, just kind of piggyback on what Brother Hanson was saying. The state has actually put out a lot of partnership opportunities through grants that school districts can apply for. And so we have put our name in the hat for multiple ones because we want to make sure that we are getting what we need as it relates to support for our teachers. We're partnering with the organization that Brother Hanson mentioned, but we're also looking into our service center, Region 11 here in the DFW area. We're leaning on them to provide support for our teachers and support for our principals this year through a lot of the Effective Schools framework that the state has rolled out. And so we're using that model that the state is using, and we are trying to put systems and plans in place to address those and really just trying to come up with engaging activities for our kids.
Thank you so much for that response. And Brother Mays, briefly, could you answer that question? And then I have one closing question. They starting to turn on the music on me.
Sure. I'm going to echo Brother Hanson's sentiments. I mean, it's a delicate balance, man. I mean, I think, we went right into the pandemic, like on the tail end of a year. And I mean, from there, I'm pretty sure Brother Tingle, as well as Brother Hanson, you're having to stand up technology, stand up professional development for teachers, get principals information as quickly as you can from the CDC, work with operational staffs to get these buildings, in the shape or condition that they can, that you can to make them safe. And it's just been a challenge for everybody. And we've been running ever since the pandemic started. And so, I think that our system is pushing it, right? And it is a challenge to balance that out as you think about some of the dire needs and gaps that have been, pretty much exacerbated throughout this time. So we're taking the same approach that Dr. Tingle's district is taking. We are focused on SEL and enrichment this summer. And it is strictly, of course, teachers that are willing to volunteer to come up and produce and participate in these opportunities. We're also trying to make sure that, every opportunity is inviting and fun. We want to try to, again, make sure that the kids are enjoying themselves. We don't want to give them another dose of what they've gotten all throughout the school year, right? We are really, really, really working hard with our community to avoid that. But again, I think the biggest focus is on taking care of the teachers and taking care of the kids. I think I heard one of the panelists earlier, if you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the kids. And so we got to make sure that we feed our teachers spiritually, emotionally, and academically, so we can make sure that they're prepared for that full stretch in the beginning of the next year. So,
and brothers, this is a lightning round, 1 minute or less. So STAR testing is underway. Since results for STAR are not being used for accountability purposes, many districts are not requiring remote learners particularly to come in person to take the assessment. So beyond safety, what advice would you give to a parent having to make the decision of whether or not their child will engage in STAR testing this academic year? 1 minute or less. We'll start with Brother Tingle.
Okay, so I will say that, safety is a big thing. We want to make sure that our virtual students that have been virtual know that we have systems in place for them to come on campus. We've applied and been accepted for a waiver that says that students that are not testing on testing days could actually learn remotely. And so only the students that are testing are going to be on campus. So to a family, that's key, right? So if everybody in the building is not there, only the kids that are tested, I can bring my child up there. I say that. Two, I think we have to educate our families on what the results could actually do for teaching, right? So just because it doesn't count for the state, what about where your child is as it relates to the standards and as it relates to where we're asking them to be? So we're using that data as a map, as a roadmap to move forward on how to educate students. Some of our students haven't tested in a couple years. And so we kind of need to see where we are. And so I think that is just educating our families on the safety protocols and on what the benefits can be for their child.
Brother Hanson, I'm gonna come to you and then I'll end with you, Brother Mays.
I mean, I really can't add to Dr. Tingle's response. I mean, that's spot on, because my first thing was, the safety part. Just then again, where they are emotionally, and if they feel like they want the assessment, the baseline. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I ditto Brother Tingle's piece that he shared. I think, the biggest thing is for, and I would say this with anything that we're dealing with, whether it's voting or education, it's like, for our communities, learn as much as you can and then make an informed decision from there, right? We like to believe that, our buildings are safe and that we're doing everything that we absolutely can to make this environment, welcoming for students. But at the end of the day, they have their own social emotional issues that students have to deal with and their families have to deal with. They got their own set of contacts at the house with an elderly parent or elderly aunt that they maybe take care of, and they got to weigh it, and then they got to make a decision based on the information that they have on hand. And we support them with that fully.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Dr. Tingle, you hit the nail on the head that the STARS provides diagnostic information to help better not only assess the needs of students, but respond to the needs of students. And with that, gentlemen, before I get the age-old Showtime at the Apollo hook from my chapter president, I'm going to yield the floor to him and close and just say, thank you so much for this very engaging conversation. There's 1,000 follow-up questions I could ask that I don't have time for. But again, as I shared with the first segment, thank you for your sacrifice of time and lending your lens of expertise to this very critical topic. Brother Flanoy?
Brothers, thank y'all so much. And before I even thank y'all, I want to thank Brother Morgan for doing a tremendous job tonight moderating this. He's done a tremendous job the entire time with the ladies in the first segment and then with y'all. I think we are the better because of what was communicated, not on what was asked by him and then communicated by all the panelists tonight. So again, I thank him for his leadership in the chapter that he's had over the years, and then for him stepping into this role and assisting us tonight. And then for you, brothers, thank you so much for taking the time. I know everybody's worked today. Everybody's had things going on. I know. And for y'all to be willing to take the personal time, I don't know if you've had dinner. I don't know what you've done tonight, but I want to thank you for being with us on this evening. I want to thank you for your expertise. I want to thank you for your support to this endeavor by this chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha. All of you obviously have a love for the frat, but I appreciate y'all accepting the invitation and being a part of this event. I'll take a bit of personal privilege. Out of all of y'all that are on, I stand closest with my brother, Anthony Mays, because we were not only LBs, but we were links. And I'm so proud of him, all that he has done. I'm proud of actually all of y'all, Brother Hanson on the school board and Brother Tingle, being able to read your bio and know more about you. I'm excited to know that I have another brother on down the way that I'm going to get closer to and get to know even better. And so, but I had to pause and give a shout out to my line brother, my LB, and with all the things that I know all of you have going on. Thank y'all so much for being with us tonight, and look forward to getting another reach out. As I told the ladies in the first segment, I think bringing this back at the beginning of the academic year, late summer, and looking at what has pivoted, what has went on, where we are with testing, where we are as we go into the schools will be great, not only for us as brothers, just to continue to talk about it and your expertise, but then for all the listening ears that are out there right now. This will be continue to be viewed and viewed and viewed, and I think it's going to continue to help people as we move on. I'm going to keep everybody on because we're going to sign off just from right here. I want to thank everybody on behalf of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Gamma Eta Lambda chapter, seated here in Austin, Texas, the capital city of the great state of Texas. We want to thank you for participating with us this evening. Thank you for your listening ears, your shares, and all the love that you've given the chapter on this evening. Thank you so much, and we're signing off now. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank y'all.
It's been real. So y'all have a great one.